so that I barely, but,
Well, maybe you should still sign
oh,
it.
oh, yeah, that's okay. It'll just, I'm Marty Schukert of RDG, and I have been the most consistent face that you've seen throughout the project, and am in the process of writing it and drawing it and all sorts of things. So good to be with you tonight, and real privilege to have all of the agencies and the approving bodies that deal with plans together. That's an unusual thing, and it's good to see you all here.
Hi, I'm Margie Uselak, member of the Plan Commission and the Town Council, and I'm here.
Brian Deering, a member of the Plan Commission,
For how many years, Brian?
going on 20. I came in to fill out another person's term when they retired from town, and I've been there ever since.
You won't go away.
I won't go. 50-plus year resident of Merrillville, and my wife's been a lifelong resident, 67 years. Her mom still lives over by the high school.
So I will be going on my 9th year in the Plan Commission, and I've lived in Maryville 45 years. Okay? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Christopher Mellon, and I'm on the Plan Commission.
Keisha?
I'm Keisha Hardaway. I'm on the town council, been a resident of Maryville 40 years, went to high school here, all that fun stuff. So, that was me.
I'm Sean Pettit. I am the Ward 6 Town Councilman, just re-elected to my 6th term. I've also been on the Plan Commission, President of the Redevelopment Commission, and I had the unique distinction of serving for Mr. Bella in his first term as Town Manager for 2.5 years, along with Planning and Building Administrator for 2 years. So I've probably seen more than I need to, right, Pete?
Yeah. I'm Pete Gipp. I'm a member of the Board of Zoning Appeals.
Joseph Etnoff, Town Attorney, and also Attorney for the BZA Planning Commission.
Ricardo Hall, another attorney for the town.
Rick Bella, I'm on the town council.
Bill Byers, I'm on BZA.
Jim Fortier on BZA
Mr. Nate.
Eric January.
Got it. Yeah,
Good, everyone, Sheila?
trying to get first names so I don't just point, you know.
Really? You want all our names?
Oh, very good.
Good.
Sure you guys are really at a meeting tonight, or no?
We have to be entertaining.
Oh, don't worry, Marty, you are.
I am, yeah. I can be. Thank you all for coming tonight. I know some of you are new to the council and maybe new to the process, so I'm going to start out with just a little bit of introduction about what we've been through and where we're going. And then we'll get into the fun stuff, which is goals for the community, specifically in what are really the guts of the plan, the most important components of it, although it's not like there are unimportant parts of it. So we have been really working on the Merrillville Momentum Plan since last March, which is pretty good because usually a planning process takes about 12 to 14 months. The Merrillville one is one of the more interesting projects that I've worked on in my career in terms of the nature of the community and some of the possibilities that it presents. So it's been a little bit of, as Corey can attest to, a little bit of a way of life for me too over these months. And we're now kind of heading into the home stretch. So this is an important time to make sure that the directions and the things that we are moving along are reasonably valid. Important thing to understand is that a comprehensive plan is not an ordinance in terms of the things that are in it or things that you must do or that have to happen. And as much as anything, they are ways of engendering conversation and raising issues and presenting possible solutions. So it's, you know, it's an important thing to realize what a plan is, but it's going to show a number of different actions that are going to be important to your work. So, for example, when some of the things that we are interested in promoting in the zoning ordinance are not consistent with zoning districts, we're going to make recommendations about how that ordinance might want to be modified. New districts, new regulations. A lot of zoning ordinances were written in the 1970s and 1980s. They're still there. I wrote one myself for the city of Omaha, Nebraska, which is where I am from, and where I was planning director in another life, like a long, long time ago. Sounds like Star Wars. But preferences change and requirements change, and some of the flexibility that old ordinances often didn't have changed. And so we as we move through the process of the plan, then we look at the implementing techniques as well, which I know both of, well, all three of the boards that you serve on are deeply involved in. We've had throughout the process a series of meetings, public meetings and committee meetings. We have talked to people on an individual and small group basis on important aspects of their respective areas. We have had 2 and maybe 3 public open houses where we reviewed concepts, which was the most recent one in October. I think an interim one during the summer and a kickoff in March. So we have heard a lot of things. I'm a bicycle rider, so I bicycle through most of Merrillville. Although today, looking at parks, I found some things that I hadn't seen before, but that's kind of the way it goes. Even got disoriented and lost a couple of times in various winding streets in post-war residential neighborhoods, which is very easy to do. So the things that we're going to talk with you about today are 3 key sections of the plan. One that deals with land use, which is sometimes what people think of as being a comprehensive plan, but it really isn't the only thing. The second being what we call the Momentum 6, and this is a little bit unusual because it's a focus on 6 specific projects or project areas that we think are transformational, that are really important focuses that are things that the town can really get its teeth into. And many of these things grew out of a series of planning workshops that we had in public during July, where we were working on site, developed a lot of the land use plan, although we've detailed that quite a bit more since then. And but many of the things that you'll hear from me tonight are things that have grown out of this process. So with that, I'm going to start. This will be really informal, despite the fact that we're being recorded. So watch your language, please. But please feel free to ask questions. Don't wait until I'm all done, because it might be 10 o'clock before I shut up. So don't don't wait. No. Just slightly exaggerating. So first of all, the elements of the plan. It's basically a table of contents. So using land effectively is the land use plan. The Momentum 6 are the concepts for these 6 focus areas, which I think are sound ideas, but have choices and different directions and things that that need not always be taken literally, but they're ideas that we think are interesting. Creating connections is the transportation plan. So it's looking at arterial streets, collector streets, trails and alternative transportation, pedestrian transportation, and transit. So it's a unified approach to transportation. A town of parks, that we will not talk about tonight because we're not quite done putting our ideas together on that. A living place, which deals with housing in neighborhoods, including historic preservation. Systems that serve get into our public safety services. Some of the utilities are not within the jurisdiction of the town, but there are areas of cooperation that we think are going to be quite important and are some ideas that we would suggest. And then finally, implementing the plan, which gets into zoning recommendations. We're not going to write a new ordinance, but it'll be directions that for amendments or changes in the ordinance. Also looking at the sequencing, things that can be done in the short term, medium term, and long term. So that will be the momentum plan. I noted this morning that one thing that we did not have is a specific economic development section, because economic development really permeates everything. So land use is an example where we're looking at economic development and economic return, even in things like zoning districts and land reservations and so forth. So those are the components of the plan. And so now we start out with this chapter that we call Using Land Effectively, which is the land use plan. So although this was not in the material that I sent out to you last week, it will give you some idea of the assumptions that we are working under. So we are, when we do these plans, we're looking at population and alternative population scenarios. So the scenario that we think, from what we know, makes the most sense, although we've learned a couple of things today about projects that are underway, is a 1% average annual growth rate, which is a very solid growth rate for a mature community. It is also the growth rate that Merrillville has experienced since the year 2000. It's a little bit above that. So from 2000 to 2020, the annual growth rate has been 0.88%. We're pushing that a little bit to 1%. But that could be low. So probably not high. So we in a land use plan also plan for flexibility, and if growth is happening faster, then the plan is not immutable. It changes and has the flexibility to change along with things that we find out. Fortunately, the American Community Survey of the Census does a new estimate every year, and it's really important to monitor that and to see how we're tracking. That will produce a population by 2045 of 47,000 people, or a growth of about 10,000 or so, 10,000 to 11,000 people. That corresponds to about 5,100, it's got a degree of precision that is not warranted by the fact that it's a guesstimate, by about 5,150 units to 5,200 units of housing. We then calculate how much land that is going to take and cover in the environment. And so that involves an assumption or a projection about the different types of housing that would be built. It's really residential development that drives the amount of urbanization, of conversion from undeveloped to developed land that we're experiencing. So we are assuming, really based on the current distribution of of these categories, about 3% of the housing development will be big lot, very big lot development, like much of the Panhandle. So it kind of fills in those areas. About a third of the growth will be what we think of as being conventional, single-family. So that is the 8 to 10 to 12,000 square foot single-family lots, which is being, for new construction, increasingly unaffordable to people. But so this number would have been a lot bigger in 1980 than it is now. About 40% is a lot of the development that we're beginning to see. So this is higher density, single-family, smaller lots, 5,000, 6,000 square foot lots, maybe 7,000 duplexes, attached units, single-family attached units, townhomes, that kind of thing. And about 25% will be multifamily. So right now, Merrillville is seeing a pretty broad distribution of different kinds of housing. And the most recent big project, which is Liberty Estates, in a lot of ways is reflecting that kind of a mix, that it has a little bit of everything in it. When we then look at the actual amount of land that we're showing in the land use plan, we usually will double that number or get close to it, because we assume that only about 50% of the land that we think is convertible to residential is going to be available at any given time. So it's a safe thing to say you can develop at that over a 25-year period. That is a fair number to make. That's going to push the density a little bit. So right now, the overall density of Merrillville, including the rural residential areas on the eastern side of the town, is about 2.86 units per acre when we look at net residential density. What we're projecting for new development over the next 25 years is a little higher than that, 3.43 units per acre, and that's what this distribution shows. So it's not telling everybody that they're going to live in 5-story buildings. It's reflecting current lifestyles, but a little bit higher density than we currently experience. And so that's the basis of the assumptions in the land use plan. So any questions about that?
I have a question
Sure.
on goal 1. Okay, the target population 2045, you're stating, or it's stated 47,000. Does that seem correct to you when we're like by 40,000 right now?
You're not quite that high. You're at about 35,000.
I thought we were 38, 39 from the last census.
36,000.
How much?
36, it was 36,000.
36? Okay. Well, don't you think that 47, that's like 11,000 more? In 2045, we're talking how many years? 20 more years?
Yeah,
And
that's
it-
a 1% annual growth rate.
Okay, it
Yeah.
doesn't seem right to me, though.
Yeah, and
We might even be a city by then.
if you get over 50,000, which is not.
There, we need to be, yeah.
Yeah, and we, just based on the amount of, we were originally calculating 1.5%.
Oh, okay.
Which would generate about 53,000 people. So it's a delta of about 6,000, that 0.5% is about 6,000 people. And it is an increase to about 7,000 housing units. So, we know right now that there are a pretty large number of units that are going in the ground in the short run.
Yes, a lot of development.
A lot of development that's going
Right.
on now. So it's probably going to be sensible to bracket this.
Sure.
So
I
I
would
think,
agree.
yeah, so we didn't know about the size of some of these projects, particularly some of the multifamily projects. So it may be, yeah, I think we're probably going to look at that.
Sure, you would have to.
And Marty, I just think, looking at the eastern end of town, out in the Panhandle, you've got a number of very large challenge.
I know. You'll see how we deal with that.
Number one, infrastructure. Since the downturn of '08, we have not had a single major project come in out there. We've had a number of smaller projects where they can stay on their septic, they can stay on well water. The problem is the only guy that had proposed a larger development was out on 101st, and he was going to spend the multi-millions to extend the water lines. But he ended up going out of business because of the downturn. And now, I mean, you just don't have developers that are wanting to spend upfront an extra 1 to 6 million to extend sewer lines and water lines.
Yeah, and we agree that that's not realistic. And it's also
That's
not
not.
politically realistic.
Plus, they don't want septic. They don't want septic in the new
Well, you can't
areas.
put a big apartment complex
Yeah.
out there with
No.
septic, you know. it
No,
just- it
so,
just
so we'll show you what we're thinking about out there. Okay, so, I will try to advance this without, like, drilling a hole through people's heads from the back, from my powerful laser here. And, so this is, there are bigger versions of this over there, but this is the land use plan that we're thinking about. And then, so on the left-hand side okay, I was doing this all morning, hitting the wrong button. So this is looking at growth areas within as the first priority, at growth areas within the town limits on the west side of Mississippi Street. So here's I-65 and here's Mississippi. And just for reference's sake, here's Hendricks and here's Whitcomb right there. And this is 93rd Avenue. Okay, so you can see the areas that are undeveloped right now that are not wetlands, and we're projecting full development in those areas, which makes sense.
Sure.
In the areas east of I-65 or east of Mississippi, there are two areas that we're suggesting for urban development. One is the area between Clay and Mississippi, south of the Deep River. See that yellow and orange over there? Which we think, because this is all zoned industrial anyway, is probably going to be relatively easy to service. We're also showing a very long-term idea for a kind of urban village at what would be the extension of 93rd Avenue and Grand Boulevard. The rest of this stuff is all a continuation of rural density, residential development.
And for the BZA members, I did share with Marty our unique petition at 97th and Grand Boulevard.
Yeah.
Tim and Pete and Bill will remember the residents coming out for the solar farm. That section, the hearing farm was pulled off the agenda, remember, guys? And I told them there's a concern out there. The Panhandle is I've said it once, I'll say it again, it's a different animal out there. It really is. And
Yeah.
Tim, and you've been out there a long time, you know what I'm talking about.
We like our guns and beer.
Yeah. So what we actually think is the right thing to do is even with existing very low density residential is even to have a transitional buffer zone. You know, so that you basically protect that and say, don't worry, you're not going to get an urban anybody existing out there now is not going to get an urban subdivision next
Marty, I will tell you, referring back to Brian's comment, if you go south of Deep River to 101st, that area that you kind of highlighted, at one time before the economy turned down, we had a petition for 725 units out there.
Yeah.
Complementary to what's been done on the Summer Tree on the Crown Point
Yeah.
side. Just recently though, folks, I got a call from one of the property owners. Her parents have both passed away. She wanted to know if the town would consider rezoning the property to industrial. We've got those three houses on the north side of 101st Avenue from Deep River to Colorado.
Buffer zone
And
for
I
people.
said, you can petition. I don't know if it's gonna go through. So they're envisioning the north side of 101st Avenue from Mississippi to Colorado, another industrial opportunity. But I don't know that the road can't handle it.
Yeah.
So there's sewers out there, Marty, I don't know if you rode through there. They brought sewers from the 93rd Avenue, Colorado lift station through, used to be Mr. Wilson's farm, Tim, out there, and came in, and that's how Summertree has their sewers.
Yeah, because they're on
Summertree is in
risers.
Crown Point, but they're serviced
Yeah.
by MCD sewers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, you're right, they're all on risers.
You can
Yeah,
see it.
yeah, you can see them in the farm field.
That was a long time ago too, Sean.
That they did that, yeah.
Many years, yeah.
Yeah.
So the thing that you see, I will learn how to use this thing eventually. So here, what we're showing is the areas in the red boxes are areas that we're seeing as possible development areas. And this is really a test case to make sure we're on target in terms of land reservation. We're showing the number of units, the area of those development centers, and then the number of units or people who that can accommodate. And this is kind of an average density, so it's looking at a 3 to 3.5 unit per acre density, but there are some parts of this that will be denser than that. So what we ultimately find out, and it's interesting because we're doing a comprehensive plan for Norman, Oklahoma, and they also have a very large rural residential area within Norman that is equally adverse to urban development. That this requires pretty efficient utilization of the land that's within infill areas, within the city. So that's what you're looking at here. And then, so now we move in, so that's all related to meeting that population goal that we think is attainable for.
There was one other thing I wanted to mention to you, Marty, real quick. There was when we rezoned some of the land south of Whitcomb Street, where it turns into the three corners of Merrillville, Sherrville, and
Right,
Crown
right.
Point. The church on Taft Street, Living Hope Fellowship, I think it is, they own all the land from behind their church on Taft out to 93rd and over to where Whitcomb Street jogs. They eventually want to put an entire residential neighborhood in there. So you've got the Luxor development up north on Whitcomb, then you've got and they want to go all the way out to the extra acreage they just bought where it turns from Whitcomb Street into
87th,
Right.
which is
And
right,
so
which
then
is
they've
right
got
here.
that large subdivision,
Yep.
and now you've also got the church that down the road wants to develop that as an addendum to their church community.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, those are good uses of these infill areas. Yeah. Now, there's some areas that are wetlands, so we've overlaid the protected wetlands, which is an element of the plan too, because, and there's a very good conservation action plan that's been done that deals with the prairie and deals with the Deep River corridor, which is also a really exciting possibility. So you'll also see a couple of other interesting things in the plan that relate to other sections of it. So this area that we're suggesting as the one kind of urban center is the intersection of the Deep River Greenway and the C&O Trail that comes down that way. And it's also the site where we think, and so did the 2015 Parks Master Plan, think is a great place for a big park. So it's because we, taking a cue from that plan, are suggesting a couple of big community parks that are related to Deep River, in addition to the county park. So that becomes, which is just beautiful, by the way. So that becomes a significant opportunity. But, yeah, we really kind of labored over what happens in the Panhandle. And we think that these kind of development clusters, but leaving most of it alone is probably the right thing to do. So, any other comments or questions before we leave that?
Just a quick last statement, because I know we're not talking about parks tonight, but since you brought them up, the one thing I noticed throughout the plan in numerous spaces, you have to avoid including Hidden Lake Park. That is a township park. It has nothing to do with the town of Merrillville. I was intimately involved in it from '82 to the early '90s. And unless they're going to give it to the town of Merrillville, don't consider that as part of our park system. It just can't be.
Yeah,
It is a township park, and they will do what they want to do, and will not brook the town of Merrillville telling them what to do.
yeah. Well, we wouldn't tell them what to do. We'd like to connect it into the rest of the town, so it isn't just sitting out there.
Yeah, but the township trustee is in charge of that part.
Township trustee,
And that's Merrillville.
but go back to it's Merrillville, it's part of the Crown
Lukowitz
Point.
was there. yeah.
Lukowitz was the guy
Right.
that really spearheaded that thing, and he guarded that, and I love.
Intimately, he
just-
took care of that.
He took care of that, and
Yes, he
that was
did.
the township's park, and he made sure
Yeah.
everybody knew it was the
Yeah.
township's park.
It's-
Same thing with John Ruda,
Yeah.
great guy, but that is the township's park, it is not Merrillville's
Yeah.
park.
Yeah, and we're interested in breaking down territorialities. Because there's a lot to be gained
Yeah,
by
well, what would you want to do with Hidden Lake Park?
nothing other than
Nothing, right?
connecting. It's
There's
beautiful.
nothing
No,
for
there's
you to
nothing.
do.
No, we're not, we would
It's
not.
already there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Well,
no,
there was an expansion that you were talking about in one section, again, I know we're not doing the.
making
park
the entrance to it
tonight, but
better.
making the entrance, you've got a couple of vacant businesses up there.
That's right.
But again, are we going to be able to talk the trustees' office into purchasing additional land, which the front of that now they're using for parking for larger events? Are they gonna buy the old window tint place? Are they gonna buy the old car dealership? Just so they can expand that park? And then would the town of Merrillville be expected to buy that, to give it to the township? Because we're not spending the money there just to have the township.
Or to do it as an adjoining park,
do it
or,
as an
or an
adjoining
adjoining commercial area. I mean,
I
there's,
see a lot of problems
yeah,
with that.
but the point there is that Hidden Lake Park is very hidden.
Sure.
And everybody would benefit from being less hidden than it is now. So,
But when they have done the larger events, go back all the way to Summerfest '82, we put 30,000 people through that park in
Yeah.
one weekend.
And I think that's
All
when the
Fourth
bridge
of Ju-
broke.
Well, no,
The
the bridge came out
Yeah.
a couple of years later. and the-
Okay.
And it broke during one of the 4th of
There
July
were
festivals.
too many people.
Yeah,
camping
but
out
they,
there.
they brought in tons of people all through the '80s into the '90s
Mm-hmm.
for all the 4th of July festivals, all the bands and everything else, the softball tournaments. But again, they guard that place,
Yeah.
like a precious gem.
and,
it is.
and should.
Since we were talking about the land usage, where does the prospective 500-acre solar farm play into this?
It's not in there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not in there. Good question. 500 acres is a square mile. I mean, it's virtually, so, yeah. So we weren't aware of it.
I mean, that's a
and
$100 million
is-
project.
Is that,
Looking at.
but is, so, so is that the 97th and Grand project, or? Is there a specific site for it?
Yeah,
Oh, there is, okay,
Yeah, it's a couple different sites.
okay, good. Now that we know, we can, so, and the developer is the utility, or is,
BPM,
Yeah.
Lighthouse.
Lighthouse.
It's all merged now, it's just BP Lighthouse.
so that is, let me get my,
north of the river, up to the train tracks.
and I'm looking at, so what's
Colorado to
Co-
Clay Street.
Colorado to Clay, yeah, I see it.
Well, and I don't know how much you've been following it, and I'm not speaking for my employer at all, but NIPSCO is getting out of the coal-fired business. That's been all over the newspapers. I'm not telling tales out of school.
So
So
it
when
is,
they close out the
it is,
coal-fired, they're gonna need more and more solar and wind.
it's that piece right there, which we're showing as industrial,
Correct.
yeah. Of which this would be, you know, within that district perfectly fine. Yeah, good, well, good, I'm glad it's there. No, that would be a perfectly acceptable thing to do in industrial zoning. Okay, so moving on, goal 2 is, under land use, is to basically make sure that the zoning ordinance can accommodate a range of different densities. So there are new things that are emerging, small lot, single family. This is actually a photograph of the village in Portage. It's a really lovely project, that are small, a lot of it is small lot, beautiful single-family houses. That's in Merrillville, which is more conventional density. We're getting a lot of duplexes. Something that we found is increasingly popular in some places is to convert single-family lots to duplexes. So that, and the result is that a family will buy a duplex, live in one side of it, rent out the other side, and use that to pay the mortgage. So it's kind of an interesting construct. By the way, please feel free to get pizza. No.
While they're getting pizza, Marty, and when you mention renting one side and living in the other, yes, that is a popular way of doing it, but not so much in town.
No,
Every duplex, you know, for the longest time, Merrillville was becoming duplexville. And we backed off of that for, you know, a number of years ago. Most of the duplex developers that have come in, we have said owner occupied. And the surrounding neighborhoods, the surrounding people that support the development don't mind the duplexes, but they don't want a ton of
renters, yeah.
You know, good, bad, or indifferent opinions on that. I know that everything's changing in our society, in the way people live. The younger generations are coming in, and many of them feel they won't ever own a house, so they're just going to be renting. So these types of developments will be good. But again, when you start pushing, you know, owner occupied on one hand, how do you justify saying rental on the other hand?
Yeah, and from a land use point of view, we're not really speculating owner occupancy versus renter occupancy. It's more the density of development and the type it is. But it's a good point. And mainly though, it's not that zoning solves every problem in the world. So planners, it's very popular right now in planning circles to say we have prohibited single-family only zoning. And we're not so sure that that's a great idea. And actually, we think that it might not be a bad idea, and we were talking about this morning, to suggest that the low-density housing in Panhandle has its own zoning district. So effectively we're saying, look, we think that what's out there is fine and can expand. There might be some urban development that's going to be contained in certain specific areas, and so you needn't worry. I mean, it's not like rezonings can't happen, but there's sort of a sense of security about that. So there are also people who think that ADUs, auxiliary dwelling units, are the solution to everything. And believe me, there are lots of ADUs in Los Angeles, and I have 2 kids who live there, and it is not the solution to affordable housing. It's,
Really?
when you're paying $800 or $900 a square foot for a house,
Too much out there.
yeah, it's pretty expensive. Okay, so then, number 3 that we think is very important, and we'll talk about this in a couple of minutes, is to create a new town center for Merrillville, to have a real community focus. And we think that the right thing to do, or the thing that we would recommend, is that there is a combination of community use and private development. And in a lot of ways, the community use can be an incentive or catalyst for private development around it. So we're going to show you a couple of ideas of what that might look like, and they're up on the board, and they're pieces that you can like locate in different places. But there are two sites that we think are really significant in terms of this level of a community center. And that is this site, the municipal complex site, that where we have about just under 20 acres of land that's open around us that's been purchased by the city, and the Star Plaza site. But we'll get to that in a minute. One consistent thing that people have told us is that Merrillville needs a central district. Also, it's interesting because when we think about central districts, we think about building literally a new downtown. And yet, we kind of take the position that that's not the only way to develop a town center, that there are different characteristics and different mixes of uses and things like that can create that kind of central commons or central quality to a community that might be adapted to the needs of a specific city and not necessarily be 5-story buildings with coffee shops on the lower level. That can be a perfectly good thing to do, but it may not be exactly the solution for us. But we'll talk about that in a minute. Number 4 is to take our commercial foundation, which is very significant and very big part of Merrillville's economy, and build on that, both from the perspective of existing commercial, not just the Highway 30 corridor, but also smaller centers. Example of that being, say, 57th and Madison, or 73rd and Taft, or Whitcomb and Highway 30, that have clusters of commercial development that are more neighborhood related. The big ones, by the way, that you'll see in a minute are two in North Merrillville, and that is Broadway Plaza and Crossroads Plaza. But those are their own deal because they're really important sites. Number 5 is industrial development, and which will be focused in the I-65 corridor and in the area that's currently zoned industrial or viewed as industrial between Mississippi Street and Clay. So that's that area that you see up in the upper left-hand corner. And on the right, on this one, just because of the shape of the slide, north is to the right. This is something that I just thought of in the last couple of days, that one impediment to commercial development in that area is access to I-65. Not that it's that far away, but it involves getting through the mess of Highway 30. So this is an idea for channeling industrial traffic out of this potential industrial area and south to the 109th Street interchange. I don't know that this will make it into the plan exactly, but
well, and as I brought up this morning, Marty, and I want to reiterate, where my office is in Ameriplex, Holiday and Purdue University only have 20 acres available for sale.
Yeah,
everything else is sold, spoken for, and/or going to be built on. And Silos at Sanders Farm, the 195-acre Sanders Farm, has all been platted with 5 lots, and you've got 3 buildings on 5 lots.
Yeah.
So I think that, those areas are already built out. South Lake Industrial Park, across the street from my subdivision, might have 1 or 2 lots out there. So from 30 between Mississippi and Clay or Colorado. There is vacant agricultural land on both sides of Colorado that's zoned industrial.
Right.
No doubt.
Right.
I mean, Polycon Industries has got an extra 60 acres. There's acreage on both sides of Harms Road, Colorado Street that's zoned industrial, which is where probably our focus needs to be. You know, this one, as I chuckled this morning, Marty, if Pete Land wants to pay for those 2 red lines, God love him.
Much of this is in Crown Point.
It's in Crown Point,
It's in
so.
Crown Point, but that's right. I mean, but it makes our industrial land maybe more marketable because it gets you to 109th Street. You know, again, they're really, the problem with 101st Street is that it's too close to the 109th Street interchange. Yeah, the weaving problems on I-65. Yeah, I mean, DOTs hate that, hate mile separations.
Well, and I'm sure you've driven out to 109th on the east side of Broadway. It's roundabout, roundabout, roundabout.
Yeah, right.
3 roundabouts
Right.
in a row.
Right.
And I hate pushing anybody into another city, because when you push them into another city, they start looking around
Yeah.
in another city.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They look at what restaurants are my employees gonna eat at? Well, gee, we come in off 109th, they're gonna eat in Crown Point. They're
Yeah.
not gonna eat in Merrillville.
Yeah,
Why would you put a roadway in with an S-curve like that instead of running Mississippi straight down to 109th?
yeah,
Better access to I-65.
you would, except this is residential, and that was a mistake, but it is. So, yeah, I mean, that would be the better thing to do, is just to go straight down. So I did this as an experiment to see what, assuming that can't happen, and that connection would generate a lot of or a fair amount of residential opposition. The idea of this is that it keeps the industrial or the commercial stuff together and doesn't have an impact on it.
What I would recommend, Marty, I would like to see is.
Better to buy those houses and.
I would rather see this aerial slide. I don't mind the 2 on the side. I would rather see this slide replaced and you show a red solid line of 93rd Avenue extended east from Mississippi to Colorado.
We agree with that.
So
No, you'll,
I think that for the general public is gonna be confusing if they see that slide in the
Yeah.
plan.
yeah.
That's
No,
my opinion.
Yeah, well, we are absolutely showing 93rd Avenue.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, without question.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that this is, it's just kind of a question is the fact that the only way you can really get to I-65 from our industrial area is running the Highway 30 gauntlet.
Well, you go Highway 30, you go 109th, you go 61st. Now, there's been a lot of discussion in the past with the council, previous council, and a previous mayor in Holbrook. He wanted an interchange at 73rd Avenue.
73rd
He
Avenue.
wanted on-off ramps at 73rd Avenue, which was not gonna be feasible. And as I said this morning, the reason I didn't support an interchange at 101st Avenue is it doesn't go through to Porter County. It dead ends at Clay Street, Tim, over there, by, what's her name? I can't think of the elderly lady. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a Clay Street, right.
Tech
Yeah.
Credit Union would run into Tech Credit.
yeah.
Their corporate office.
Oh,
Okay, so anyway, that was a last-minute idea that, okay, so now let's get into the other stuff that has nothing to do with Crown Point or interchanges. So we think that there are 6 projects that have emerged as being of special focus. So 2 of those are shopping centers. So one is Broadway Plaza and one is Crossroads Plaza. 2 of them are major redevelopment projects. So that is the municipal complex site and Star Plaza. And I'm sorry, that's not what yeah, I don't know what I was thinking. Yes, and 2 are civic sites, so that would be, so the major redevelopment projects would be Star Plaza and Century Plaza. And the civic sites are the municipal complex and the connection that we've called the Merrillville Promenade that connects the high school, the community center, and Hidden Lake Park connects them. It's primarily connectivity. So here they are, these 6 areas that we think are really interesting opportunities. And the orange line is Broadway, which needs its own kind of detailed look, but it grows out of these. Oh, what happened there? That's. I guess I didn't hide that one, but that shows the individual strategies. Now we get into more detail. So we start out with Broadway Plaza, and Broadway Plaza is a really viable commercial center. It does not look good, but it's economically strong, fully occupied, got people in it. It's an important service center for North Merrillville, and a project that fixed that up, that really made it a very presentable, attractive shopping environment, customer experience, would be great for the neighborhood, and good for the economics of the site too, but it's not something that a shopping center owner is likely to do by themselves. So this would involve a public-private partnership to be able to get something done. That's something, then, just to avoid lasering somebody in the back, involves a redesign of the parking lot, the development of a good sidewalk, landscape sidewalk along Broadway, really nice civic sidewalk, having a pedestrian path that gets you from a bus stop on the BMX into the shopping center, that straightens out the circulation, does a really nice landscape walk, kind of a Main Street walk along the businesses, and does facade improvements along the building itself. So the idea is to take something that's a viable economic entity and make it rather beautiful, we hope, for the community and the customers in
This is the one on 54th?
54th.
Well, don't they have businesses in there now?
Yeah, it's full.
Are they
Perfectly.
prospering?
Yeah, apparently.
Okay, well, then you wouldn't want to get rid of them.
Full, they're all there.
You're doing great. There's only 2 empty buildings, 2 empty spaces in that plaza.
What do you have there?
The banquet hall.
Oh, you have the banquet hall. Okay, how's it doing?
It's doing great.
Good.
Looking busy.
Yeah, no, it's a good location, yeah.
But it used to be known as Mays Plaza.
Yeah.
Because there was
Right,
a maze
Mays.
in there. And just every kid in Merrillville
Went
hung
there.
at that parking
Right.
lot, just about every night.
What's
And
the
it was
name of the
a
banquet
great
hall?
place to go. There was a couple of nice
Next
restaurants there that the
Next
kids hung
level.
out in. I mean, the families
you
would go
bring
in
it
there,
out?
and it's a good viable
the
piece of
owner?
property.
Yes, it is.
That really needs our support.
Yeah, yeah, it's a strength to invest in.
Yep.
Yeah. So, this really grew out of the studios that we did, out of the workshops, that we had people from North Merrillville who said, whatever you do, come up with an idea for upgrading Broadway Plaza. So very, very, and it's also something that actually does not require heroic public projects. I mean, it's something that could actually be done. I got it. Oh, don't worry. No, there. Yeah. Now, one that isn't doing so well
What?
is Crossroads Plaza.
Crossroads.
Yeah, so here we are at 61st and Broadway. And so the idea here is to take down and redevelop the part of the project that's largely vacant or underoccupied.
If I can interrupt at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, please.
DZ and Plan Commission have a lot of petitions coming in where these spaces are getting leased now.
Are they?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
There's been new ownership within the last 6 months, been very aggressive in marketing, promoting, and leasing out those spaces.
You have 2 to 3 petitions fellow business property owners next to them coming to support their businesses, so.
Yeah, that center's turning around quite quickly.
So the guy that had petitioned to possibly turn it into light industrial, he's gone?
Yeah,
Mr. Israel's gone.
That's it.
There's a new group in there that owns it now.
Okay.
They've even gone ahead and leased out the old Ponderosa location.
No kidding?
With
Yeah.
with a nice Mexican restaurant.
Sure.
Cool.
With a nice
Okay,
menu.
about that.
So just be aware of
I
that.
didn't
Yeah.
realize Mr. Israel was on.
Yeah, he's,
yeah, but I would still, so it may be that a better treatment for that is actually something like we're proposing at Broadway Plaza.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, because it's a sea of, it's overparked,
It's starting to move.
yeah.
Well, the one thing we have to work with them on is, of course, an upgrade of the center, but an upgrade of the parking lot.
The parking lot's right, yeah.
Parking lot's horrible.
The parking lot's horrible, yeah.
Yeah, just to try and get into Burger King over there is tough.
Well, and the interesting
One of
thing,
them
when the Mexican restaurant came in, the Ponderosa, they talked with Burger King, and sometimes Burger King will have a line 45 minutes long.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's the only restaurant in that location, so it's like a food desert over there.
Good, yeah, so what we were suggesting here, not knowing all of that activity, is redeveloping the south part of the site residentially, and then fixing the circulation and and right-sizing the parking lot. So it may be, if that's still, if that's happening, that this part, which improves the circulation for Burger King and Long John Silver, and centers the parking, but makes it the right size and has better circulation through it, is still a pretty viable thing to do.
Joe, the place that is the antique, secondhand flea market, whatever you wanna call it.
Uncle John's.
Yeah, Uncle John's, are they doing business? Cause man, they advertise a ton.
I think they are.
They expanded, they started when they came before the the BZA and the town council, they were in one, and they actually moved over to the other unit next to it, so evidently they're doing really, really good because they leased the
Well,
other side.
and what you have in that center is you have one single owner that's leasing out multiple properties for different concepts, so.
That's good to hear.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I mean, that's great. What other kinds of things are going?
Well, it was, the one, I'll give you an example of, they came in with a Mexican restaurant, they also did a dog grooming facility, and I think they're planning on coming back for one more.
Had a beauty shop in there and then a massage therapist coming in.
So we'll do an alternate illustration that shows what you can do with the existing center. Sure. Yeah, good to know. Okay, so number 3 is this is an idea that emerged from just kind of being around a lot. And that is that we have these 3 great things along Broadway that are not really on Broadway, or don't have that much of a presence on Broadway, that are kind of away from it. And we thought, oh, how interesting to connect those. Look, again. To connect those together and to see that almost as a central district as well. So here's the high school, here's the community center, and there's Hidden Lake Park. And then here is Crossroads Plaza and the Shoppers World Plaza, or that shopping center. So the concept here is to link those together with paths and trails and greenways, and then use that as an impetus for development or redevelopment of commercial in the middle. So think of this as being kind of a connected district that goes behind Filer School, comes down Madison, into the back of the community center property over Broadway, that's what you're seeing on the right, into the high school, and then under the tracks into Hidden Lake Park. So,
Under the tracks. So that's pretty flat right there.
yeah,
Going
under,
into Hidden Lake Park, you know.
yeah, under the tracks.
But the demographics of people using those three facilities are completely different.
You're right.
Yeah,
So why would you want to mingle them?
exactly. That's what a central district does, is it mingles people who are different.
Well, Marty, the one
And
thing,
there are some connections. I mean, the high school and community center have a link. The park is a gem. It's a wonderful thing.
The park is a gem, but I don't know, even if it was a Merrillville park, I don't know if it's wise letting the kids at Merrillville High School just have free access under railroad tracks. And I used to go under railroad tracks in Gary when I was a kid growing up. And getting into Hidden Lake Park without a lot of supervision. That's a very large unsupervised area.
yeah, the gatehouse, bro.
Other than the gatehouse. And if you put, on the back side over by the gazebo and where they put the bands in that, you put access from the high school, you can have a lot of kids just wandering under there.
Yeah, I would say probably the connection between the high school and Hidden Lake Park is the least important part of this. The high school and the community center is quite important.
I agree with that, yeah.
Yeah, and so what we're suggesting here is in a first stage of a Broadway streetscape project, is connecting 61st Street with the community center and then ultimately down to 68th Avenue, down to the Township Historic District, and then back into the municipal complex. But, yeah, so this is actually the least important component of it. But what is really quite important and is to cross the Broadway barrier. And so what you're seeing here is an idea for a pedestrian bridge. This is the entrance to the high school. So that bridge would ramp up, come down, and land back there on Broadway. So where we're at here is where there's that big wide frontage road that's like 42 feet wide. So by reducing that to 24 feet, which is all we need, we pick up 18 feet, which allows us to do this, to get the ramping in and the path.
Marty, the other thing I failed to mention this morning is the community center and the land that we own. And Leona, we had proposed a trail and a crosswalk across Madison to connect Turkey Creek in the backside.
Exactly.
So you have that.
It's in there.
We ended up getting bids, and the engineer's estimates were more than we had left over in the bond issue. So we kind of put that off to the side, but we thought as many residents are in Turkey Creek and along Madison.
It's a great idea.
To bring them in the backside of the community center. Now, if I'm not mistaken, Joe, we own all the way to the Madison Street right-of-way, right?
I think.
All that woods that's on Madison is town property. The problem we've got with that is we've got that lateral that runs through there. That's, I think, a county-regulated drain. And so, as far as future space, do we clear all those woods out? Take all the trees down? And what could we put on the other side of the ditch, between the ditch and Madison, that would benefit the community center, i.e. another soccer field?
Mm-hmm.
Or practice fields.
Mm-hmm.
You know me, I don't like the idea of taking down all the trees.
They're not hardwoods, Brian, don't worry.
Well, they don't have to be all hardwoods, but just maintaining that woodsy feel. That was one of the draws with the Dean and Barbara White Center the first time I went over there, is you see the soccer field and then you see this beautiful expanse of woods behind it, which of course is reminiscent of where the Y&W Theater used to be. And you put a walking path through there going over to Turkey Creek, I think it would be a real amenity. If the demand came down the road for a second soccer field, yeah, take a portion for the soccer field, but don't just clear cut that whole piece of land.
I should cancel my call to home here.
Soccer among the woods.
Soccer among the woods.
Which actually would be really pretty nice, but, yeah, so this kind of a project, there is an element of the infrastructure bill that's called Connecting Communities. And this would be a very strong candidate for that, to be able to, make that linkage, because the street is very, very difficult to get across. So number 4 is the municipal complex. So, yeah, okay, so the idea here, and again, it is a suggestion for conversation, is for orientation's sake, here's Broadway. This is the building we're in now. So that would be repurposed for police, for law enforcement, which is kind of the current plan. We think it would be a good idea to line Broadway with commercial buildings, with retail, have the parking for that between the two buildings, have a sidewalk connection from Broadway that's a pretty clear one in. This is a town hall. So, and this is actually a copy of a building. It isn't plagiarism, because it's a building RDG did in West Des Moines, Iowa. That is, how big is West Des Moines now? 70, it's 90. It's really, yeah. In other words, it is a footprint that would fit, that would fit your needs. We've not done a programming study or exactly know what you might build in a new town hall.
Are you talking now
70.
where it comes in off of Broadway now by the stoplight? You're gonna put 79 or 77th through, around Town Hall, around the police department, over to Madison?
That's
Street?
correct. Yeah, that's correct. This is 77th Avenue.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, which comes through here and then
That all
comes
the way
over,
through.
yeah.
Perfect.
Mhm.
The biggest problem you've got there is where you show that south road going to Broadway. That's the little piece of road that we inherited with this land when we bought it. It is not a designated street, nor is it wide enough by current ordinance to make a two-way street on.
That's this one.
Yeah, it was, what was it, a 16-foot spike strip?
Yeah.
It's, all it is a 16-foot spike strip. You might be able to get away with putting it out to Broadway there, but you're not gonna get a two-lane road going through.
Yeah, or the other thing that would be kind of interesting is make it purely pedestrian,
Yeah,
Walking path.
a walking path.
to get from asparagus
To get from asparagus
Yeah.
into the, yeah. So the other thing so we've got like a flag plaza and kind of a monumental entrance, which actually fits very nicely. So this is an amphitheater.
God bless you.
And again, that is, that is patterned after the one in West Des Moines. That is a similar kind of town hall plus amphitheater
Marty, I've
relationship.
been pushing for this for probably 30 years.
Well, wait, there's another idea for an amphitheater, so
That
don't get,
amphitheater would match Bulldog Park, that would match the one out in St. John, that would be our summer event space, that
That's
would be
right,
our
yeah,
farmer's market,
yeah.
that would be local bands, that would be
now
the way to
the
go.
capacity of this, and this is a direct copy from that project, is about up to 2,000 people. Yeah, so, and you can see how we've sort of made the pedestrian system flow through there and kind of
Well, see, and that's
connect
what I was
there.
talking about with Hidden Lake Park. For years and years, Hidden Lake Park was the place to go for summer festivals. You go to Griffith, you've got Rock and Rail Fest, you've got the festivals over in Munster, you've got the one at Wicker Park. All of these communities around us have put in outdoor amphitheaters, and they get in the tribute bands, because all the old rock and roll and country and every other kind of band has died off. So they bring in the Pink Floyd tribute band, and they bring in, the 60s soul bands, and they bring in whoever you want to name.
Right.
They bring the tribute bands in, and they put a couple of thousand people
Yeah.
sitting on the lawn or sitting in the chairs, and they spend money.
And this would really help energize Broadway. So, yeah. So these are community office buildings, like, they're blue nonprofits or other agencies that would be, that we'd had conversations about consolidating some of the satellite agencies or other independent conservancy, I don't know, but into one. So that's that kind of possibility. This might be commercial or mixed use, and these are residential.
The only problem I see for residential, Marty, and this goes back, all the folks in the surrounding area from 73rd south to 80th place, the last time residential was proposed in there, they came here like the barbarians going to Frankenstein's cave.
Yeah, I know.
And they went out of there. I mean, this room was, I've never
Brian's
seen.
just up the street there, Marty, on Madison Street,
Yeah.
so.
So if you go north on Madison, you see the Hook subdivision there to the right of the edge, up in the upper left corner. I have the acre on the corner on the northern street. But I know all of those folks, and
Yep.
if you start talking, if it's normal residential, fine. If you were to put, for instance, a HEPA, okay, HEPA has one building now just south of the Greek church. They also have all the buildings over by the Dunkin' Donuts. And
Who's that?
that's the
Greek.
the Hellenic Association.
Oh, the Hellenic, okay,
That
yeah,
has
yeah,
their
yeah.
own tax district
Yes.
and their own tax financing, and they have
Yeah.
rent controlled, age controlled, and the beautiful thing about that is it is a semi-private public entity, being a church property, and the way that the law is written for section 402 public housing is it's 55 and older, it's rent controlled, you have to be on social security
Yeah.
only, and they have done a magnificent job.
And that would be fine.
Yeah, the problem.
Marty, I'll tell you a history lesson. The reason Brian's on the plan commission is this 16 acres. We had a lady come in from Carmel, and we rezoned the property, and she promised us 4 different times in 4 public meetings on the record, I will do 55 and older. The last meeting we tried to do the PUD, her attorney came in and said, oh, by the way, I'm getting Indiana Finance Authority, I can't do age restricted. So if you have to have your 17-year-old grandson move in, we had to let him. That blew up in her face. We ended up rezoning the property. Ryan was extremely vocal. We ended up getting sued, and we settled with her, but that's how we ended up with this 16 acres.
Oh, really?
We turned down a multifamily, what was supposed to be age restricted, and Brian's absolutely right. Those neighbors on 76th and 75th and 77th, they're gonna be screaming at me and Leona, for what we're putting out there.
I mean, for that matter, it could be a continuation
That
of
should be
that
a-
along.
that should be a
If
HEPA
you
in there.
haven't, and I've said this forever, if you could talk Mr. Van Pruyen into extending Madison Meadows to the other side of the street.
the other side.
They would cheer like you wouldn't
That's
believe.
fine,
Yeah.
yeah.
It would be
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, and the idea of it is that it's basically street-oriented residential, so it's a continuation of that street. Yeah, that's good to know. It's perfectly,
Like
that's
I
a,
say, either the AHEPA
these are just
properties-
boxes
but
right
see,
now.
AHEPA, they own the property south of the Greek church, going for another quarter, almost half a mile behind the church on the south side.
Yep.
They have plans down the road to build 2 more complexes. They've
Yeah.
got one there now, and they want to build 2 more.
They've got all the buildings, Marty, by the water tower that you see off on 30. You go up Cleveland, they've got all those apartments, all those buildings are all a HEPA.
I see.
In different phases.
And not to bore you with how the mechanics of it work, when they wrote the section 402 of the tax code, when the government wrote this up to give money for age-restricted, retirement community, whatever you want to call about it, it was written in there that it will be age-restricted forever. There's no possibility that, you would have a vendor change it to a market-based rental unit. That if they do that, the government steps in and takes it away
Yeah.
from you. They pull all your
Yeah.
finances.
They
Which
have
has
a
been-
waiting list, don't they, Brian?
Oh, God, they've got
Yeah.
years waiting list, because again, for folks that are very modest income, especially where they're only drawing Social Security. It is a fantastic program.
Yeah.
And they have had that waiting list for years
Well, this would
and
be,
years
this
and
would be a
years.
wonderful place
Mr.
for that.
Benjamin told me there's over 900 on the waiting list.
Wow. I
Yeah.
used to work
So,
there,
Marty?
so I know it real well.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that's,
Yeah,
Okay.
We're not developers, so I'm
Right.
not really sure why we want to put residential on town property. So
Exactly.
what's missing there is the dog park
Yep.
and even a larger park, just to draw people to the area. And I think instead of thinking about using town property for residential growth, we should just think about amenities for our residents.
And again, your town
And
center.
it takes us away from all this discussion about what should be there and who we're
Well,
gonna
it takes us away
tick
from
off.
becoming landlords.
Right.
Which we don't want to become.
And it adds a nice,
So that could
nice
be that
focal point to
yeah, I
to
think
make
we
it a
got
town.
off the point here.
yeah.
And then, and Chris hit the nail on the head. It makes it a nice amenity to make it a town center. You've got your amphitheater on one side, you have a park with walking
We know
paths
we need more parks.
on the other side.
You
We
definitely
gotta
need more
have
parks, yeah, that are useful.
So that might fit in there in the north.
That might. So let's look at the next one. So this is an idea for Star Plaza. And so again, a lot of these things are interchangeable, and keep in mind, these are in a way tests. What?
Can I raise my hand?
Yeah.
I know you're all gonna hate hearing my voice tonight, but it's a cute plan, Marty. It is the greatest waste of the greatest asset that this town has.
Yeah.
I
would
can't say it
say,
any plainer.
so I would say, yeah, so the only reason,
And Marty, for Joe, for your benefit, I was clearly, strongly stating
yeah,
that 40 acres has to generate taxes. No ifs, ands, or buts about it.
yeah,
You know as well as I do, I'm sure Sean has said it, I'm sure Rick, I'm sure everybody has said it at one time or another. I know I've said it to you. That needs to be the Donald E. Stevens Convention Center of Northwest Indiana, period. That was identified by the state of Indiana as the #1 site in Northwest Indiana for a convention center. Donald E. Stevens, if you look at their footprint, is not that huge footprint-wise. It's
No.
not like the old International Amphitheater that covers hundreds of acres wide. It is a contained building, but they have huge shows there. They have the auto show, they have, or the World of Wheels car show, they have, concerts there, they have on and on and on, and they're always booked.
so, whoop, I did it again. All right, so,
Yep.
yeah, so I like the city hall, the town hall there.
Perfect.
Yeah. The only reason, we did that because there had been, people saying this should be the town center in terms of being a civic center. So the experiment here was if town hall went there, what might that look like? I think and we did this with the sense that these are, again, interchangeable parts. So that building footprint is about 50 or 60,000 square feet.
Well, what you just said was, people said it should be the civic center, and I was at a lot of those meetings too. I think more what they meant was
Conventions,
a civic convention center, not just a
Okay.
civic amenity.
Here's what we have to remember, folks. This property, you do not own. You do not have any control over it.
Right.
And we don't have $15 million.
If you want to have control
15
over it,
million.
write the check for 16 million.
Right.
16 million.
They're
We
listed
can't
for
do
15,
anything.
Eric.
15?
15 million for 40 acres.
40 million.
No, it's 40 acres.
40 acres,
40 acres,
15 million.
yeah, but we can't do anything with it anyway.
but
It's
it's,
private
it's,
property.
it's giving people ideas is the point.
Yeah.
You've
Yeah.
got the same
So-
problem, Marty,
But
and I'm
you know
sure
what?
you've heard it from many of the town fathers. The biggest problem there is Bruce White, God rest his soul, after Dean passed away, Bruce took over that property, the Wellman, representation is gone, all the old timers are gone, and they had a plan, and it was a good plan. But the county, just like we talked about the fiefdoms of other cities, the county decided that, I don't know for sure how they wanted to dip into Bruce's pocket, but he walked away from it.
Yeah, they want to do the parking.
No, they didn't want to come to the table and didn't want to help them
Yeah.
out. And it's all of our loss. It isn't just Merrillville's lost it. It's a big loss in Merrillville.
Okay, so let me explore just a couple of ideas. This building, this purple thing, is an indoor-outdoor performance venue. The thing that we showed on the municipal complex site is an outdoor-only amphitheater. So this is patterned after a project that we've been involved in the Omaha metro area, in a suburb not dissimilar in size from Merrillville. And a developer built this, who was also the developer of a mixed-use city center project. It's called La Vista City Center. So that's, this could accommodate a convention center or mixed-use project. This is like these are our public elements, so there's like a children's museum and an adventure discovery playground, which could be on the other site that we were talking about. This is a hotel or office or whatever with a parking deck. These are all this is all private development there. So a convention center, if that were does not take 40 acres. It's not that large. So there are different options here. And basically the point is that Star Plaza is a really important site in the city and ought to be taken full advantage of. I think we have come to the conclusion that the better site for town halls, for the town is back there, is behind this building, yeah. And we're pretty convinced of that from this exchange that we've had today.
Donald E. Stevens is an 840,000 square foot convention center. And they have another 8,000 vehicle parking facility across the street.
800?
840,000 square feet. And across the street, they have
And
8,000 vehicle parking.
where is that?
Rosemont.
In Illinois,
And that's the
yeah.
closest, other than maybe the one there at Allston.
'Cause it's
the
close to
the
O'Hare.
outdoor theater there.
Yeah.
I think that's really the biggest convention center, other than going into Chicago,
Yeah.
within driving.
No, it is. It's if you're talking about the one there
But its
that,
footprint is not that huge.
yeah,
I mean, they've got a lot of square footage,
Yeah.
but they've got multiple floors. They've got, the ability to host concerts on the main section, but then they put their parking across the street, multi-tiered parking with a skywalk going over the main drag.
Well, we wouldn't want that, would we?
I don't know, that would be
No,
a real
that'd be,
gem.
I don't know. What
Well,
about the
so
Montgomery Wards building?
there are a couple of other interesting things here too. That one idea is a rerouting of Rhode Island Street to the north. You can see how that works.
Yeah, the east
So
side.
that it pulls it off of Highway 30 and it makes that developable land. Another idea is developing convention center or whatever, a park behind where those retention ponds are that you can't see. And putting a pedestrian overpass at the Georgia and Rhode Island intersection with Highway 30 to get into Century Plaza. Another idea that is really a difficult one, but interesting and important, would be to connect 80th Place and 79th Place under I-65.
Come out by Costco there?
Yeah. That really cleans up the whole congestion problem in Mississippi and Highway 30. That is a project that, when I showed that to an earlier committee, Iman Ibrahim from NERPC said, boy, am I glad you put that in there, because we would really like to see that. That would, just solely from a traffic and commercial development point of view, that would really do a lot.
Have you guys shared with Marty the upgrades to Mississippi Street that they're talking about, putting in the roundabouts and all that?
Double dog bone? No, I don't wanna do that, Brian, I might scare him.
Nothing would scare. What?
79th Avenue, on the west side of Mississippi goes into, I call Cypress Equities. It's got Culver's.
Yes, right.
It's got Crumble Cookie, it's got Ollie's, it's
Yeah.
got Costco, it's got Lowe's, it's got Bob's.
Yeah, it goes into that big shopping area.
But it doesn't line up, Marty, with the Hobart side, which is where, which furniture store is it? I can't think. And then there's Wise Guys and,
Wise guys.
yeah.
Yeah,
The room place. It's
Yeah,
it's a weird intersection. And then north of that, Lowe's has a cut on Mississippi that goes into the Lowe's parking lot.
right, right.
And then north of that, you get into the Hilton Gardens, which is in Hobart.
Yeah.
They have a cut on Mississippi.
Yeah.
Mississippi's 4 lanes.
Yeah,
It's one of the first things we did as an RDC, way back in the day when Rick was first on the council.
yeah. And all that stuff should line up.
Well, it doesn't.
It
That's the
doesn't,
problem.
no.
That's our problem.
That's part of the problem,
Who
yeah.
was the developer on the Hobart side? My dad's old buddy.
Stiglitz.
Stiglitz, yeah.
Stiglitz.
Yeah, well, if you guys have been through there in a week, they've cleared all the woods. Al Krieger's in there clearing all the woods. He picked up the property from the city of Hobart. But that's neither here nor, I mean, the problem, as I stated this morning, guys, and I stand by it, you guys will hear me beat a dead horse for the next 4 years while I'm in office. That property needs to be developed the way Mr. White laid it out, the farm at the crossroads by Genovis. End of story. It was an absolutely perfect plan. He went and asked for one thing from the county council, and they turned their back on him. And I'll tell that to the county councilman, because Ted Bilski was the only one that supported it. He was willing to put up his money. He wanted a public-private partnership for $335 million project, creating 1,600 union construction jobs and 900 permanent jobs. You don't turn your back on a project like that. That's why I am adamant as the councilman about this. And it'll be beating the dead horse, but squeaky wheel gets the grease, right, Ryan?
You got that
I still have it in my basement, by the way.
right. Yeah, we need,
That's the one, so that is like the urban agriculture,
The urban agriculture,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
At the amphitheater, the 85,000 square foot that would flip up for both convention and concert venue. The 250 room luxury hotel with banquet on each side and underground parking. That's what he was after, was the underground
Underground
parking, and built
parking, right.
everything on top. It's a lifestyle center.
yeah, yeah.
It's a lifestyle center is what he had proposed.
I'm gonna
So-
email it to you, Marty, so you'll have it.
No, I've seen it.
I think I
I've been in
did
the
that
architect's
before.
website, and it's in there. Yeah, but do that anyway, Rick, that would be, yeah.
Very soon.
Um,
It's gonna happen, and we're
Well,
gonna-
yeah,
we're
that's
gonna-
a very good point
we're
by
gonna
Chris.
lose our foothold on that area, and it's gonna be driven right past.
In my other life at Lamar, we've got 3 billboards on 231. Crown Point is still working on that north I-65, 231, that area of a fashion outlet mall.
I know that for sure, because I work for the city of Crown Point, I work at their wastewater filtration plant. I know what's going in, we're putting a second facility in on Gibson and 123rd, I believe. And that whole area is a $2.4 billion development that's going on. What you wanna do with, we would like to see there is going in, whether we like it or not, and it's happening within the next 10
I'm
years.
not taking down my billboards.
No, I know, I'm just saying, it's gonna happen.
act on this.
So we're gonna
next
get
little
looked
bit.
at, right, they're gonna drive right by us to go south.
South on
5
I-65.
minutes.
And they just built, and they just opened the new hospital.
Brand new
right at
hospital,
that
too.
same corner.
It's coming, there's a
Yep.
school that went in there, they're building 17,000 homes in the next 10, 15
That
years.
interchange is exploding.
They're gonna go from our population, what it is, and they're seeing theirs double ours in a matter of 15 years.
And all
And they're
of
gonna drive
that
right by us.
surrounding business, all of the restaurants, all of the support to that plaza right there will be out on 231 if we don't act on this in the next little bit. We've got to beat them to the
Yeah,
punch.
that's exactly what happened. I totally agree with that.
What do you think about buying the property there, Joe? Give Beth a call tomorrow?
Talk about
Make an offer?
barbarians at the gate.
Well,
I mean, that's the asking price,
the,
15 million.
the problem is that I think it was just the White Family Foundation. We could probably get a discount on the price. So the problem is there's other entities and other family members.
Right.
So there's not a lot, I don't know if there's a lot of room to move. I think you'd have to talk to your bond people and finance people
Yeah.
to see if we could come up with, something viable to But the problem not only becomes acquiring the property, right, you acquire the property, but then you have to go ahead and you have to vet different developers to come in and
Right.
develop on the property.
Right. Well, we would
Joe,
make
isn't there a
big
trust?
PUD, basically, right?
There's a trust with stipulations in there.
There's five entities that own
Okay.
different parcels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One
But
of
they
the
have a
things-
trust drawn up.
One of the things we went in, I went in as RDC president, and Joe was in the meeting along with Mr. Hardaway and Bruce Spires. And Bruce and Dino Yankees called us in to tell us he was selling the property was, we created a TIF district around that area, so I-65, 30, 80th, and Broadway. And I gave the farm at the crossroads to Bob Swenson. I said, Bob, when he fully builds this thing out, $335 million, what will he pay in property taxes? He said $7 million. So my simple math said, a 15-year bond issue, we're gonna collect $7 million for debt service. I made Mr. White the offer, we'll reimburse you $105 million. You put up all your money, the 335, and the town will reimburse you. Unfortunately, he said no, because he was adamant about that food and beverage tax from the county. He wanted $75 million of the food and beverage tax that the county council wasn't willing to pass. And so, you know, we've lost out. And my argument to the county council members is, there's probably 10 electricians from Highland. There's probably 30 union carpenters from Holbert. There's people all over this county that would have been working on that 40 acres. And you guys turned your back on the guy that helped do everything in Lake County and his dad.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's just, it's harsh, but it's the truth.
No, it's the truth.
It's the truth. And if you can't explain yourself up on that dais, you got no business being on that dais. Right?
Right.
The
So
location of
I-
the property.
And
So-
Mr. White was so invested in that property.
Sure.
Perfect example, the memory care center. Most people don't really realize it's there. A lot of people do, but a lot don't. The memory care center up by the little motel up there. That memory care center was built state-of-the-art specifically because one of Mr. White's family members had Alzheimer's. And he built that facility to not only take care of his relatives, but to take care of the people that developed that business.
And one thing we hear that Joe and I heard, I want to do something to honor my mom and dad.
Well, right.
Now Beth wants to do something to honor Bruce and her two in-laws. So
Yeah.
we got to keep that in mind as we talk about this thing, who's going to do this? Now, for the record, so everybody knows, it's being listed by CBRE. They've got the listing for the White family for $15 million.
Yeah.
So negotiating, I mean,
So I would say.
I don't want to be in the land business, do you?
I would say that asking price for that property is not exorbitant.
No.
It's $10 a square foot.
Well, to put it in perspective, Marty, the silos at Sanders Farm, 195 acres, they bought for $15 million. Didn't have utilities, they had to extend sewer and water, but we had just widened Mississippi to 4 lanes. So that kind of gives you a perspective of the location
Yeah.
versus what's down on Mississippi.
Yeah, but $10 a square foot is not.
No.
Not an exorbitant price
No.
for that, unless my order of magnitude is wrong here.
Say
But
it and any more strongly, if we're gonna act, we need to jump, because everybody's gonna beat us to the
Okay,
punch.
so what would you like the comprehensive plan to say about Star Plaza?
It needs to be the Star Plaza. Whether you name it the Star Plaza or the White Plaza or the White Center or however you wanna name it, it has to happen. It has to be, you can do away with the Twin Towers office buildings, but you need that that big hotel, you need that convention center, you need that concert space. Because that was a focal point of Merrillville for how many years? And they weren't hurting they had a hard time towards the end getting some of the A-grade acts in, but they still filled the theater.
It's a stopping point in between
Yeah.
Chicago, Michigan, and Indianapolis.
Here's
How are we
another
gonna do
opportunity,
anything
folks.
when we
As
don't
of
own
today, there was
Where
a
we-
deadline to submit any potential sites for a convention
Yeah.
center to the county commissioners. They are going to consider the top 9 from a study that was done out of the Minneapolis consultant, and this was number 1. So this is being resubmitted. We put Farm at the Crossroads in the plan as is. What kind of weight do you think that's going to have with the county commissioners when they select a site for a convention center? We've done our planning. Has Hobart or Hammond or Gary done their planning? No, this is our opportunity, as Chris said, to jump on this. Quite honestly, Marty, if you want my 2 cents as a councilman, that summary of Farm at the Crossroads needs to be in the comprehensive plan for that picture. I probably said too much. As I always do.
Well, and
Not enough.
Eddie Melton, who just took over as mayor of Gary, has, and I just have heard this time and again from people that, and Eddie worked for NIPSCO for many years, but he was a state representative. He has a deal somewhere in place that if everything aligns for him, he's gonna get a convention center across from Harbor,
Across from,
across from the Hard Rock Casino.
oh, okay, yeah.
And
Wow.
Yeah, where's he getting the money from?
Okay, well, let's quickly move on, because we've got till 7. So the last of the 6 is Century Plaza. And,
Oh, Mr. Doobie.
you have voted.
yeah,
What do you think, Joe?
well, let's not talk about it in detail, because but we don't know what a good reuse program for that is. But a suggestion here, and again, this is kind of a latecomer, because I've been thinking about it, is I don't think the commercial market there is that strong, and the exposure of the site is not that strong, but the stuff around it is pretty good. The idea here is that it becomes an innovation district. Basically, it's small, it's job-producing, startups, creative businesses. The pictures here are from Culver City, California, and the Hayden tract, which is just full of this kind of stuff. And it's something that doesn't really exist in Northwest Indiana that we've seen, anyway.
Mr. Doobie had an entity in that big building, which was Burlington Coat Factory.
Burlington Coat Factory.
And most people don't realize this. I know this because my wife was the cash room auditor for that Burlington. That was the biggest money-making Burlington east of the Mississippi River. They made more millions than any other Burlington. Mr. Doobie decided he didn't want Burlington there anymore because he was going to try and attract Hilton to build a hotel back there. That fell through. And so he just basically quit fixing the building. And the place leaked out all of their product, and they went round and round with him for 2 years, and they finally said, hell with it.
We're out of here.
And went to home.
Yeah,
And they're not anywhere near as big as they were before.
Yeah.
But that was an incredible moneymaker.
Sure it was. I worked at the service merchandise that was right next to it
Yep.
there when I was a
Worked
kid.
with my sister-in-law.
Joe, you know something about this place, don't you?
Yeah, I used to work there.
well, anyway,
For the side of
so,
the property.
so the idea is that it is a site that something has to happen in. It's not a residential site, because that does not make sense there.
What type of markets are you talking about putting there? What type of businesses?
Oh, like startups, like new, like small, like flex building.
Tanks.
You can see the stuff, what I was thinking about are these kinds of buildings. Generally, single story, employee rich,
With movable potential walls.
yeah,
Change the square footage.
yeah, exactly.
Where you could see this the best is in the Ameriplex complex, where the Purdue Research Center is. My office is right behind there. Then immediately right behind me is a flex building they just built.
Okay.
So you could drive by that and see what that kind of contains.
And it's something, I mean, in fact, the market study, the market analysis we had done said that I hadn't even thought about that in relation to that study, but that was a supportable use, because there's a shortage of that, of these, that you could, it's a concept that sometimes you see in, as reuses of old industrial buildings, things like, that are just a variety of different types of workshop or creative business startups.
But I think then that Sean has to get a hold of Mr. Doobie and figure out, is he gonna tear down the Burlington building? Because what is, he puts Halloween City in there once.
Well,
Yeah.
Mr. Doobie is a unique individual. Number one, for the benefit of the new council members and Eric, this was number 2 in the Minneapolis study. So we had the top 2 convention sites in the study that the RDA commissioned. Mr. Doobie came in last year about this time and said he was gonna bring in 2 big box retailers. He was gonna fill in the gap, and he was gonna do something. Another unfortunate story, related to Crown Point, Chris, you talked about leaving. Burlington was supposed to be the University of Chicago Ambulatory Hospital. Unfortunately, what Mr. Doobie did was when he signed the lease for Staples, he gave Staples the authority to veto anything that went on that property. Now, why Staples would veto an ambulatory hospital? They were willing to spend $18 million in renovating Burlington. You know where that hospital is now, Marty? 109th and I-65 in the city of Crown Point.
And it's
So
almost
tell me I don't have a bitter taste for Mr., I get along with Rich, because I have to, but he's not my favorite guy. And so, we've been strung along, and he's been kicking this can down the road as to what to do with this property for, Rick and Joe, how long? 5, 6 years? I mean, it's
It
getting,
goes back before that.
it's getting a little ridiculous.
I've been bitter towards that man since that company ran
Right.
all the little
So-
vendors out of Century Mall.
He's got the second
I used
most
to run
visible
So the
property.
basic,
I
the
used to run
basic,
the music store.
the basic diagram here, because we've got another section I want to get through in 15 minutes. Is to break the site up with running a street fabric through it, and to develop it with these kinds of buildings, with this being kind of a bigger incubator. So, you know, it's certainly not in love with the idea, but it is an idea that would probably work there and meet a regional need. Okay, so anyway, moving on to transportation. So we start out with the arterial system. And one of the recommendations as a strategy in the arterial system, because we've got what we've got, is to monitor the performance of various streets and roads for upgrades. So for example, 73rd Avenue is a basically 2-lane rural road that widens out in different places, and it's getting a lot of traffic. So there may be a need at some point in the future to widen that or upgrade it, not necessarily to 4 lanes, but to 3 as an urban section. So we're not, I don't know that we're in a position of saying or have the information or data to say that it must be done, but it's something to monitor in terms of growth. But the things that we think are quite important are, first of all, the extension of 93rd Avenue east of Mississippi Street. Very important project. You'll see that in a minute. The connection of 79th and 80th Place under I-65, which is a complicated project, probably more complicated jurisdictionally than it is technically, but because there's some elevation there. It does not have to be truck clearances. It's cars and pedestrians and so forth. Some way of connecting Hendricks to Whitcomb and then south into 93rd Avenue. So this is a confusing
Yeah,
picture.
we're at on Hendricks.
But here's Hendricks right here. Here's Whitcomb down here.
Yeah.
And the idea is either to keep the sort of jog that we've got now and tie Whitcomb into Hendricks that way.
Is Hendricks the light at Bozak?
No, it's Taney.
Taney, yeah.
Place,
Yeah.
Taney Place.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
now what did you want to do with Hendricks? You wanted to,
Okay, so this is Hendricks.
okay,
That ends at 73rd Avenue. And then
Right.
If you're making, so this idea says you'll continue to do that, but there would be a connection of Whitcomb
to Whitcomb.
to Hendricks right up there.
But I thought they connected now,
They
didn't
don't.
they?
Yeah, they connected 73rd.
At 73rd?
We'd have to figure out how to take the land going from Reeder's Farms or whatever you want to call
Right.
it there, north of 73rd and come over towards the, what is it, not the VFW, is it the?
Yeah, it's VFW.
Yeah, over towards the VFW.
Yep.
Or the other
Old
idea,
Hendricks.
the
Old
other
Hendricks.
idea is this orange line
Yeah.
that would that Hendricks would tee into that, and this would come around through open land and tie back into Hendricks that way, so that
Oh,
it
okay.
doesn't get into this residential area.
Yeah, I got it now. Okay.
So there's that. This is the other end of Whitcomb, where it's called 87th Avenue into 89th Street.
Right,
And into Grant.
yeah.
So that is actually getting taken care of. It sounds like that there'll be a roundabout at 91st Avenue, and then a gentler curve there.
Right.
Which basically does the same thing.
That's
as we're
close
doing.
to the government
Yeah.
center, right,
Yeah.
right by the
Yeah.
government center.
Couldn't we connect Hendricks back over on the old Reeder Road? The old water road?
You'd have to go through Griffith.
Well, no.
Where's-
Because Merrillville goes for at least 200-300
So
yards.
tell me
down-
where
down,
what that is.
Reeder Road.
no
Go
idea.
north on Hendricks, you cross the old railroad tracks, and where it then turns back to the east, there's a little road right there that goes out of Merrillville. It's still Merrillville, but it goes up to the Griffith Prairie.
Yeah,
If you went to the end of that and hooked it
So
around,
you're
you
up
could
here.
come out and connect to Whitcomb Street.
So you're up here coming.
Yeah.
yeah, that's all wooded area.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
all
farm.
wooded
Well, but
area,
the
and
problem-
farms.
The problem is not wanting, I mean, the reason for this is not wanting to channel traffic through that residential area,
Yeah.
to get around it rather than through it.
Yeah, the old Scooby-Doo.
Yeah,
Yeah. So the second goal is really important, and that is building a collector system. Because right now, our collectors on the major streets, on the major street network are very fragmented. So this involves things like taking the fragments of 91st Avenue, which is right here, and tying them together, or connecting 86th Avenue to the west, or opening up this area south of 73rd Avenue with a collector system that partially uses that's Grant, this is Chase. I'm getting my old politicians mixed up here. Yeah, Taft, Grant, Chase, yeah. So extending 57th Avenue across to Hendricks. Those things that are,
by the railroad track? Are you talking about close to that
I
railroad
mean,
track?
that's 54th Avenue,
Yeah,
54th.
57th tees, and then you go around the little
Right.
corner,
Yeah,
around
yeah.
Gordie's old
Yeah,
farm,
that's,
and it comes out to
that's
Hendricks.
54th.
That's
so-
you, Eric.
Right,
Yeah,
Yeah.
Eric lives out there.
right at that corner.
Right, at the corner, right. Where would you want to
Going
connect
backwards, yeah.
57th to what? Could I ask you again? Marty,
Yeah, so this is it right here.
what is that?
That's 54th.
That's
54th.
But
Yeah,
isn't that the road that
57th.
then goes out to Griffith, past the old airport?
Main Street?
Yeah,
Yes.
because it does,
Yes.
yeah, it's Main Street, this is Main Street
That's a
right here.
lot of swamp through there, Marty.
Yeah,
It's all
Yeah.
ponds.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm talking deep swamp.
Right. That might be Army Corps of Engineers out there
Yeah,
too.
could be.
The Army Corps of Engineers are out there, yeah.
and then here's, yes, probably, and then here's 93rd Avenue.
Yeah,
So number 3 is a trail system.
yeah,
So this is a combination of side paths along streets, connecting routes, which are on-street routes on the red lines here that are, well, we refer to as bicycle boulevards sometimes. A big element here is using that east-west Con Ed line as a trail that would connect the hospital with the Erie-Lackawanna Trail. The Deep River Corridor and, of course, the C&O Greenway, and also including a pedestrian overpass at Star Plaza and at Grant Street.
Would we have to have a pedestrian overpass, or could we just go with, help me with the name, Sheila, an eagle signal? Over on Taft Street, they've got an eagle
Hawk,
signal.
hawk.
signal.
Hawk.
Hawk,
That-
eagle,
that-
falcon.
That's for the trail,
Right,
yeah.
for the
Yeah.
trails, now you can stop traffic on Taft Street.
Yeah, that, I was
across.
glad to see that. I saw it
So
today.
why wouldn't we do the same thing there?
Because you're stopping traffic on Highway 30 with a hawk
you
signal,
can't.
and
it's
you
not
can't
just
do
state,
that.
it's US.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a
yeah.
bike trail in there too
So,
somewhere?
but the grant
Yeah.
one is particularly important because that gets people from the north side of the library.
Sure,
So, yeah, I mean, Highway 30 is terrible pedestrian, I mean, it's horrible. I mean,
Yeah.
it's horrible to get across and it's horrible to move along. And I think that, you know, those are issues that, so if we had one way of getting over Highway 30 for pedestrians in that area and one in this area, that would be an enormous way to connect
to connect,
those
right.
two areas. So that, then the next goal deals with sidewalks. And so in this map, what we have done is charted the areas that do not have good sidewalk connectivity. Those are in red, and the ones that do, which are in blue. And then the school locations, which are the red dots. So some of these are rural density and probably don't really need sidewalks, but these areas that are these residential areas along, here are residential areas along Broadway, here are commercial areas, such as the hotel district, where to try to get to Starbucks across Mississippi is an interesting experience that I've lived through a few times.
Sure.
Run across it.
So you're just talking about on the main thoroughfares, you're not talking about going into like Forest Hill or Chapel Manor or any of those and trying to.
No,
Well, they have
along,
sidewalks in those
yeah, along
winding
collector
streets.
streets,
Okay.
yeah, but,
Chapel Manor's got.
yeah, but,
Chapel.
yeah. Yeah, but not, yeah, so these are the sort of, they're somewhat lower income neighborhoods, don't have sidewalks, don't have
Like
sidewalk
Forest Hills,
access.
they don't have the sidewalk.
Forest Hills has some very nice homes.
Yeah, I don't mean, yeah, but the other thing is to have within a walking radius, 15-minute radius of schools and neighborhood parks, to have a way in all four directions to get to them on foot.
Yeah,
So, for example, I saw, which park was it? Where it was, maybe it was Meadowbrook, where there's actually a sidewalk and the park interrupts the sidewalk. You know, that shouldn't happen.
no,
So there should be.
sidewalk comes
There
into
should be
park?
sidewalk access to those.
Yeah.
So, you know, we're proposing a policy here, not a specific.
like a
as-
changeover,
Yeah.
maybe.
That, yeah, you can't put sidewalks on every street, but in these areas, there's probably one street where sidewalks would really do a lot of good.
Well, some of the older subdivisions didn't have sidewalks because of the developers. When they started coming in the late
That's right.
70s.
Exactly,
They
yeah.
started putting in
Exactly right.
sidewalks, yeah.
Yeah, in the 60s and 70s.
Because when I moved into my subdivision, I requested
Yeah,
sidewalk.
Yeah, in the 60s and 70s, developments did not have sidewalks.
Right,
Well, my parents' subdivision, Southmore Park, just there by the Greek church.
yeah,
They have never had sidewalks, and it's never been an impediment, because it is not a heavily traveled
Yeah.
area. People walk around in there.
Yeah,
But those areas are coming back, and this is something I've wanted to mention a couple of times, especially to the redevelopment, to Joe and that. We've got a bunch of rehabbers in town now that are really doing a hell of a job with a lot of these older homes that become vacant. I was shocked. My mom and dad died 6 years ago. Their house, we sold for X amount of dollars to a guy that, unfortunately, he was in his 50s. He dropped dead about a year and a half later. It sat vacant forever, full of water, full of mold, full of everything. Rehabber came in, put a ton of money in that place, just sold their modest ranch for $285,000.
yeah,
I'd like to hear that.
yeah. Well, that's a
And that
bargain.
isn't the first one.
In
That
this,
same
in
company
today's
has done that
housing
3
market,
times
that's
recently.
affordable housing.
Yeah.
it is, I mean,
285 is pretty Tony for me.
yeah, no, that is low end today, yeah.
Unfortunately.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's low now.
So we've got a whole series of strategies about that, but particularly in these areas, you know, there's pretty good sidewalk coverage in a lot of these subdivisions but.
Sure.
But in this, particularly along the Broadway corridor, it's not very good. And those are, and those are areas where you get families and
Yeah, I think around the high school too.
around
They
the high
don't-
school.
The high school doesn't have them,
My
yeah.
in-laws were the first home on Skinner's Pond back in '56, other than Old Farmer Skinner. And that's the last street, Carolina Place is the last street over before you
Right.
look across to I-65.
Yeah,
The
that's right.
people that live over there don't really worry about sidewalks, they just walk the street. And again, because there's not a lot of traffic, it's never been a problem, you know.
But when you get kids, it's a problem.
Yeah.
My wife grew up there and she walked up the hill in the blizzard of '67, you know.
I mean,
without a sidewalk.
the biggest issue with sidewalks is that they always get financed, particularly in areas that don't have them, is they get financed by special assessments.
Sure.
And so those are deal killers, because people, well, I don't want the sidewalk, I don't want to pay for the sidewalk in front of me. So what we recommend is, and we're doing a project in the Kansas City metro area like this, is identifying a major sidewalk system that is seen as a general benefit and is financed through bond issues.
Oh, good.
And so, it's not everywhere, but it's multiple, it's like major streets, it's not
Sure,
every sidewalk.
where it's very
Yeah.
imperative,
Also,
yeah.
also on streets that are collectors, and this is where they're really important, on collector streets, or minor arterials, particularly like 73rd Avenue, there needs to be sidewalk continuity, or 61st Street. And we've got it in some areas, but where a sidewalk is on one side and crosses a busy street, gets to the other side, those need to be protected intersections. It's those kinds of situations. Finally, transit. So this is a map from the NERC 2050 plus plan. So we didn't do the transit element of that. We did the land use and active transportation elements of it. But we strongly favor the recommendation of the consultant, and that is the hub system.
Yeah.
So the hub system has the greatest benefits for Merrillville, because rather than just be one stop along Broadway, it has a line from Valpo, a line from Dyer, a line from Gary, obviously, which is BMX, and all of which converge here, which is Highway 30 and Broadway.
Yeah. Are you talking about a transit system going from Merrillville into Valpo?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's what this line, so there's Valparaiso.
There's Valpo, and the bus would run
Yeah.
from Merrillville on Broadway into Valpo then?
Yeah,
Okay.
How do you talk
I mean, I don't know.
15 disparate communities?
Well, that's, so the
into this?
so the recommendation, the recommendation is to consolidate those operations into a regional authority, into a unified regional system.
Yeah,
Which is the rational thing to do.
yeah.
I mean, probably the Gary system is the best of everything that's around.
Right now, yeah,
Right.
right now.
Well,
Yeah, I think they are.
there are about 7 others that offer some kind of transportation.
Right, I think East Chicago has.
Well-
some-
East Chicago does, Hammond does,
We had a plan,
Valparaiso does. Yeah, no,
about
they're-
4 or 5 years ago, we had a plan with the bus system to run through Merrillville to pick up people who didn't have cars or transportation.
Yeah.
And response.
And for
That's a
some
demand
reason,
response.
that never went through, right,
No.
Sean? We
Yeah.
were talking about transportation through Merrillville.
GPTC.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
but you're saying
But of
the
the-
main street on Broadway with the bus.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
this is the new hospital.
Uh-huh,
This is Crown Point
yeah,
downtown. This is Merrillville. So the BMX, the bus rapid transit on Broadway would get extended in this plan to the hospital. You know, make it, now it.
Oh, give the
it-
people
it
a
is
ride
an
to the
Ivy
hospital,
Tech.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
it-
They currently go over to the mall in that too.
yeah,
Go to the government complex too.
Government complex, the Veterans Center.
Yeah.
They also stop
Well,
at the
you
Veterans.
know what, I think Gary's got a senior citizen bus that takes them around to the mall and to
I'm
doctor's
sure they-
offices.
Yeah, this is not, but these
But
are not,
this would have
these are not
nothing-
local services,
Yeah,
these are
okay.
regional services.
Regional.
Yeah, so a regional service that would basically stretch from the Illinois line to Chesterton, basically.
To Chesterton.
Oh,
From
yeah.
Lake Michigan to the
Yeah,
south.
so there's-
border.
They could come from
So here's the
Chesterton
South
into
Shore,
Maryville?
right up there,
Yeah.
yeah, so there's, yeah, and Chesterton's up here, Valpo is here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so of the two options that were
Mm-hmm.
proposed in that plan, we think this one does the most for Maryville.
It seems to be on the ball.
Fortunately, it was the
Yeah.
consultant's recommendation of the two. The
Yeah.
other one was kind of a major corridor plan, so.
Well,
so-
it depends on what would it cost, you know, people today.
Yeah,
If
Yeah,
you're
Yeah,
talking
and
a
each
dollar,
community
so
would have to
$2,
See the dollars.
the
and
dollars
be
because
willing
of
to share.
yeah,
inflation.
they did a financial model. I mean, there's money getting put into transit, and they wanted to
That would be great then.
pretty money neutral. Yeah, yeah.
I
Okay,
got one thing for you, Marty, and hopefully the rest of my colleagues will agree with me. Where are you going to implement the stormwater management plan that Christopher Burke did? Because I'll tell you, I've had the phone calls. Sean, can you make it stop raining? Can
It's
you
in-
control the rain?
it's-
No, I don't control the water as a councilman.
it's in the public services.
It is in the public
It's in
services.
services,
All right,
too,
'cause
yeah.
Matt spent a lot of time and a lot of money on that stormwater
We're
management.
very
plan.
happy to hear that that's done.
Yeah, he's got the 9 different areas and it affects all of us.
Yeah, that's
And
where,
I'm sure we all get the calls about drainage
Yeah.
and
yeah, I mean, we won't repeat the whole plan, but
cover
we'll
it.
cover
Okay.
it, yeah. Okay,
I love the plan, and one of the things I just wanted to add, just in terms of priorities, I look at that 40 acres that we have out there, and the things that are going on in Crown Point. I see that almost as like an existential threat to
Sure,
the Merrillville
oh,
commercial
that's what you
district.
said.
And I think that we have to really prioritize doing something with that, because we have, I'm noticing people that are already moving out of Merrillville, businesses that are moving out of Merrillville. And we have to really do something to address that. And I think the idea that you have in terms of like the Stephen F. Donaldson Center, that could put us back on the map. And,
They're not gonna let us build a convention center on that property.
well, I thought it was one of the places that they were saying is one of the top places for a convention center. Didn't you just say that?
There was a study done, the study's being redone. So those two that were placed at top before may not place so high next time, I don't know. What I'm saying is the White family has told us to our face, they do not want a convention center on that property.
So would they sell it? Or is there?
There's gonna be restrictive covenants on it, it's not gonna allow
So
you,
they're still trying to control it.
well, no, I mean, they own it, they control it.
I know, but once they
No, he
sell
said
it,
if they
if they
sell
put a restricted deed on it, they're still controlling it, although, they are, not the owners anymore, because they want to deed it, so that it can't be used for some other purposes down the road.
And I'm not saying anything nefarious, but do you think with the White family's family home
They're in
being right near 231, they're looking at their own deal that they might pull off at 231 to cut us out of a convention center here?
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, that they might be looking at investing their money that they would have invested in Merrillville out at 231 in Crown Point, and now we're left in the lurch with a $16 million
I'll
price
tell you
tag.
what, they made a significant investment in Maryville Neck
Oh, I know
Community
that.
Center.
I know
To
that.
the tune of about $10 million.
Oh, I know that.
And they've kept their world headquarters here, I think,
Is it?
right? With hundreds of people employed. So I don't
We
think,
can't put a convention center there, then what's the purpose of purchasing land?
Yeah, exactly.
what they're trying to do is they're trying to lure in, developments which would have the character and style that they want to salute their mother, father, and brother. Bruce, Dean, and Barbara. So what they're talking about is bringing in maybe a big anchor, such as a huge office building, with a big anchor in it.
Office
then
buildings are dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't,
People are moving out.
although Oklahoma
I'll give you
City
the
is
number
plan,
to,
134-story
CBRE.
office.
No, so they're experiencing growth in the suburbs. When you look at downtown Chicago, downtown San Francisco, many of those places are dying because people are experiencing work from home. So it's increasing the demand for other types of amenities.
I'm not saying I'm not saying a 99-story facility.
Right.
I'm talking about a 7-story facility. That'd be more manageable.
Yeah, I understand that,
But is that gonna be something that's gonna draw people
we're about to
to,
Yeah,
right.
we're looking
town of
for,
Maryville, like you
Exactly.
just pointed out about the convention center?
How many people were still in the Twin Towers when they tore them
They're
down?
building it somewhere in northwest Indiana, and we have one of the most vital corridors in northwest Indiana, just like Chris was just saying, I heard the name. So Chris was just saying, it's feeding into Michigan, it's feeding into Chicago.
It's a
You
stopping
go to
point.
Indianapolis, it's a great stopping point. So I don't know who's advocating
not
for
gonna be
us
a stopping point
in
for the office
Indianapolis. Right, the office building, we put into it.
Well, and if the White family doesn't want us putting a convention center on that corner, let's go to the other corner, let's make an offer to Indianapolis to buy the Century Plaza.
Yeah,
Put the convention center there.
well, we tried to before, we were talking about it about 8 years
Well, how can I
ago,
go to
right,
town?
John?
You know-
Going into the.
Do you realize how much money it would take
I
to
don't
acquire
know.
that land?
Yeah, right?
16 million maybe?
How about,
A lot more than that.
what if we just took half of it?
Yeah.
To acquire what?
Where Century Mall was, if they would sell half of it, maybe.
This is why I get pissed off at the county.
Is that
council.
possible?
Look
I think
what
that's
we're all
less
doing.
valuable.
They had an easy out 5 years ago, Joe, and they
I
screwed it up.
understand, but that's down the road now.
Yeah,
Well,
the biggest straw this town ever had was the fact that we had the Holiday Star Theater.
Well, it's
Need
over.
a destination.
Going back to the,
Don't even
All right,
stop.
all right,
Keep
so-
talking about
Need
it.
the
We're going
destination.
nowhere.
Yeah, so
We have to
we
go with what we
spent
have.
about 30 minutes talking about the need for a convention center
Right.
at that site. And now that family would not approve that.
Where we can't
So
get
where
it.
does that put, where does that put us?
we're
Yeah.
gonna put it, and I hate to say it this way, we're gonna put
I
a
did
children's
start it.
museum that brings
No, we're
20
talking
people
too
a
much
day
about
in.
something we can't have. We should go to Century.
I would argue with that by saying, there is a children's science center that just got built in Omaha with this mix of uses, with Discovery Playground next to it, and it is attracting thousands of people.
We're not Omaha.
Yeah,
We're
but
not even-
but
we're
you're,
not Chicago.
well, except you've got to think about it regionally.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying that's what you should do, but.
Well, no, I mean, I don't think people are gonna come from Valpo and Hobart and Hammond, and maybe they'll go once, and then it's gonna be a
Yeah.
dead issue.
But if that's, again, Joe, if that's Beth's feeling, that's all fine, well, and good. That's why I'm hammering home the farm at the crossroads. You're gonna deny your deceased husband's plan and idea to go on that 40 acres if we can find investors to the tune of 350 million?
He denied the idea, Sean. Remember we were in that meeting?
Yeah.
We said you can do it? He said that ship has sailed, Sean.
Yeah, because he didn't get the food and beverage from the county council. He never,
No, because they denied him the plan at that time. He put it away. He said, we're never gonna do this again.
Where's Farm Crossroads at?
that's the design that Bruce came up with, Eric, on the 40 acres.
On 40 acres.
Yes, yes.
There were a lot of aspects of that project that people didn't know about. There was also a $50 million trust that was gonna be set aside to take care and upkeep of the property for a lifetime. So you not only have to get your $400 million of project coming in, you also have to get a set aside of $50 million. I mean, there's a lot of, there was a lot of
Well,
moving
Sean,
parts
how about
with
a
that.
few years ago, didn't Sparrow Batistotis come in with his plan over there? They called it the farm property or something?
That's
They
what we're
were gonna
talking
have
about.
horses.
That's what we're
Oh,
talking
okay,
about.
all right.
Yeah.
This is losing me now.
Hey, I just see we gotta do something, because when I rode by Crown Point.
I agree. Yeah.
Going to, this conference in Indianapolis, 109th Street is moving. You know, they're bringing 17,000 residents, the University of Chicago, that other hospital out there, that's a threat to Methodist Hospital. I mean, people, when they choose between hospitals, they're probably gonna choose UC.
Eric,
UC.
correct?
Right,
It's Eric?
yes,
It's not 17,000 residents, 17,000 homes.
right.
So you're talking
Double.
50,
Yeah.
40,000?
Yeah.
Franciscan knew what they were doing with that hospital there.
Yes,
They
they
knew
do.
exactly what they were doing.
Oh, yeah.
When my folks
Back to
came to
long-term
Merrillville,
planning,
and I was-
Franciscan knew exactly what they were doing.
Yep.
They knew what that interchange potential had down there, with the city of Crown Point, with the fashion outlet that was proposed on the northwest quadrant. They knew exactly what they were doing. Why do you think Andrain was kicking around the idea of taking 70 acres south of the hospital? Because the Catholic population was moving south?
that.
No, it's not moving south. That was fabricated.
We're here.
It's a potential.
We're here.
But no, when I came here at 15 years old, almost 16, I watched this town build restaurant after restaurant after restaurant after venue, and this was the place for Northwest Indiana to go to Restaurantville. All the restaurants, all of the bars, all the cool places to go were here. They're all gone, with a few rare exceptions. They're all south on Broadway, out in Crown Point. They all moved out there.
In the late 80s and 90s, when I was a teenager, and I'm not much younger than you, Joe, you came to Merrillville to hang out as a kid, to play, to see shows, and go to cool restaurants, go see a movie, go take your girlfriend, which is now your wife, to dinner and a show, to the theater, to the drive-in, to all that stuff. I did. But that was a destination point. And over the last 20 years, you're kind of seeing that trickle away to Valpo and to Crown Point and Munster.
Because you were coming here to see a show, you were going over to South Lake Mall
Oh,
to
yeah.
shop, which shopping centers are dying.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's been a lot of changes in the marketplace that we have to better adapt to.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying nothing, I'm just saying, yeah, it's about adapting to a forward timeline that we're going through here. I mean,
Can't stand the past.
that's all I'm saying.
So
Well,
one
we need
comment,
different
one
focus.
comment that I would
When
make,
you're in Broadway
and this
closed
gets into
with the
convention
shopping
centers,
center,
because
went to the
we,
mall.
is that,
Now the mall's
and
gone.
I was talking
Where'd they
about this
go?
this morning too, is that we are doing a
Yeah.
project and did a project and are doing another follow-up to it in Overland Park, Kansas, in the district that has their convention center in it. And the complaint that has really motivated a lot of these studies is that when they try to market the convention center, and it's a very nice one, and it's got a hotel attached to it, but the organizers of the convention say, we can't sell it because there's nothing to do around, there's nothing to walk to. So the idea of a convention center that I think is critical, that has to go into the planning of it, is that there's got to be stuff around it that are walking distance attractions, because once people once they park their car at a hotel, they don't want to get in the car again.
But isn't it the old adage from the movie, once you build it, they will come?
Yep.
The restaurants will come, the attractions
Not
will come.
always. You've got to make
Look
it
at
happen.
Overland, Kansas.
Yeah.
They're not there.
They built it,
And
and
they
they're
didn't,
not
and
coming.
they didn't come.
Well,
Yeah,
right.
so
Go back to Rosemont. Rosemont was a spit in the road near O'Hare. There was nothing there.
Go,
They built a.
go
they
in
built-
our own
and there's
backyard, guys, on
restaurants
Mississippi.
everywhere.
As soon as we widened Mississippi, Kroll Holdings was in there buying the farm, 195 acres. We got 2 million square feet of distribution warehouse out there because we widened Mississippi.
Yeah.
We built it first.
Yeah.
And then they came in and they bought the farm.
Yeah,
No pun intended.
and Overland Park, I mean, this is an area that's getting a lot of
Okay, Joe.
high-density residential development and some commercial, and so part of the plan that we're looking at now is how do we fill in big corporate parking lots and big corporate lawns, because this was a very, very significant office center. But an office center is dead after 5 o'clock, and the level of office occupancy changes somewhat. So they're now kind of going, the essence of our projects have been to try to make the area more walkable and to try to fill in the gaps in this very big suburban scale stuff.
Well-
Bottom line is that you've got to have things, if it's going to attract people from outside rather than like local events, there's got to be stuff around.
In defense of Sean, with the farm at the Crossroads project.
There would have been stuff,
It-
yeah,
Well, it had the long driveway up,
yeah,
you entered in, you checked in, you had a hotel, you had services, you had residential, but then you had an amphitheater, like, kinda like a.
Yeah, right.
Like a.
The performance.
like an entertaining
Yeah.
venue, you had walking grounds, you had equestrian centers.
precisely. Things to do.
Art
Thing-
gallery.
Yeah, no, that's
Art gallery
exactly,
in there.
that's exactly the
Which would keep-
yeah.
Keep people on premises. Instead
Exactly,
of getting back in their car and going.
precisely, yeah.
Which was their.
Which was their model. I mean, that
anyway.
made sense,
They had
right?
nice restaurants over there, they had nice bars. When they would bring in the Model A show, all the Model A people would park there and they'd just wander around property, going from, the bar to the restaurant to wherever, you know? And that's where your transportation comes in, because then you have transportation coming out of there and taking them to the restaurants, you know, it's a no-brainer, but how do we make it work?
It's a no-brainer if you have $500 million.
Exactly.
And it's private property, and I don't know if the town is the one to make it work. That's what you have to think about too. We saw a lot of things tonight. We need to look at what we can do.
What you can do.
What's affordable for us to work on? And a project that, if we do pick a project, how many residents will it impact? And the more, the better. The best plan I saw was to start at 53rd and Broadway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do a partnership, and that's real doable. Come on, trees and restriping the parking lot,
Plus-
and do some cool stuff,
plus-
lighting, that's easy.
Plus, to do the strengthening of the north end.
Right.
Plus the investment.
We
in the
have
north.
to stabilize, starting north, coming south, guys.
All right,
Otherwise, doesn't matter what goes on Route 30 and I-65.
Yes,
Yep.
yes and no, it's still.
That's a whole different, that's a whole different subject.
Oh, I know, and I don't do a lot of social media, I don't comment on social media, I don't, but I read, I lurk in the background. And everything I hear online, by word of mouth, from the residents of the town, from one side or the other, people I've known for 50 years is, where's our Star Plaza? Where is our hotels? Where are our restaurants?
Yeah, but see,
They
that was
want
never,
back.
those were never town functions anyway.
No, but
You
if
know,
we were to acquire
it's a
land
private-
and then market it to the people with money that would be the operator.
That's, we could do that, yes. And we could make TIF districts and assist the
Right.
developer and stuff, do that.
Yeah.
And make sure the zoning's right.
So when is, so right now the property's up for sale.
Yep.
When is this report on a convention center for Northwest Indiana coming out?
Oh,
it was
God,
due today. Joe, I don't know when are the commissioners gonna release it?
it's like a year from now.
No, I think I thought any day now.
So Lake County is doing it.
No.
State of Indiana.
Deadline was just today.
The
Well,
deadline was,
I thought they were already conducting the study.
No.
But we need to.
Oh, no,
No.
no, no. They
you have to
just turned
submit the locations, they're gonna take the locations and study them,
Months-
and give a
months
report
away,
back to the
months away.
commissioners.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, did anybody submit anything on that?
Well, we submitted our two that we have, the 1 and 2, the number 1 and number 2.
Ours were automatically.
The 9 were automatically renewed from the previous Minneapolis study.
Okay.
Any new ones you could submit, as someone alluded to with the Hard Rock, that's probably gonna get thrown in there.
Sure.
Sure.
You know?
So if that, so that's going to get submitted well before we go to press, it sounds like. I mean, like, really soon.
Yep.
Oh, boy. So where are we?
You've got what, the public meeting
Are we-
tomorrow night?
No, it's not public, it's the committee, yeah.
It's the committee again, or is it?
It is the,
Committee which consists of the public.
yeah, yes, that's right. It's not like an open house, it's a, it's a pub, it's a,
I did reach out to some other people.
What does
Correct.
that concern, the master plan, or
Yeah.
what?
Same
The
thing.
master
Yeah,
plan.
the same
Oh,
thing that we're
okay,
talking
yeah.
Well, I will share with the group, and Marty, you specifically, as the councilman, I have received 3 phone calls from 3 different developers, and they have done work in town. Edward Rose on residential is curious as to what can I do on the White property? What are they gonna do, Sean? Are they gonna subdivide? I don't know. It's not on the market, I don't have the information, so I've kind of put them on hold. Holiday Properties that developed the Merrillville, 400 acres of light industrial, where Joe and I are at.
right.
Light industrial warehousing and that.
Great
They are
project.
interested in it.
Yeah.
And then a local, smaller guy, Pat Shackey, who's done a lot of governmental buildings, is interested. But again, I think the family wants to sell the 40 acres lock, stock, and barrel. They're not gonna parcel off here and there.
The family wants to sell the 40 acres to a responsible developer that's going to bring good quality development, high quality shops, high quality tenants, but with a vision, or at least a plan for a vision that what they had for that facility. And there might be some opportunity for some type of public spaces there on the property itself. I know at one time, they had drawn in an amphitheater on the premises.
Yeah, no, that's what we were showing too. I mean, so one, you know, well, I don't know, there's a lot of stuff, there's a lot of stuff here floating around, but, and we are not in the plan at all doing anything other than showing illustrations of things. In other words, we're not saying, you know, this should be here and this should be there, particularly on Star Plaza property, because our main purpose is to say, here's a range of things that have been considered or could work. The key is that it be developed for something that is a regional destination, and that is a pretty powerful attractor of people. And what the mix of those uses are, there are, you know, 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 different things that could happen. What we would not like to see it used for are a bunch of fast food places or mini warehouses or any combination of stuff that, yeah, you know, really bad.
Any warehouses?
Mini warehouses. You'd be surprised.
Oh, no, we're not.
Those things make a lot of money.
We're not surprised, are we, Sheila?
No, you could,
Lean's got
or 250,000 square foot distribution buildings, or, you know, things that you don't, it is a critical site and it ought to be used to its best advantage. And you know, we proposed here in that model civic uses primarily, with the assumption that the owners of the property were philanthropic and might want to see it be used for primarily civic uses. But,
Can I finish up with one last?
Yeah,
thing
sure.
about master plans, and then I'll shut up. A number of years ago-
Never happened.
A number of years ago, in the town of St. John, there was a legal issue of whether a plan commission or town council is locked into zoning because of its master plan. They call it a master plan, we call it the county. And here was a brief portion of the case. The town's decision not to rezone a parcel for commercial use as a gas station was not arbitrary or capricious, even though comprehensive plan called.
okay, say that again. This is, yeah, so start over with, yeah, so
The
start.
town's decision to not rezone a parcel for commercial use as a gas station was not arbitrary or capricious, even though the comprehensive plan called for the area to be rezoned commercial at some future point. The parcel was only a plot on the block that was not zoned commercial. The plan commission and the town council were concerned with existing traffic congestion at the intersection and determined that the road construction was necessary. They would have to spend a couple $1 million to alleviate the problems prior to any rezoning. The commission and council also considered property values of the area residents when making their decision, and then it lists all the court cases. The master plan, and this is from the state guidelines, the master plan is a guideline, but it doesn't need to be followed if there are factors to warrant a different zoning.
That's
Remember,
correct.
the 5 basic considerations in rezoning called for in our ordinance, as well as state law. The portion of 603 is, the plan commission and legislative bodies shall pay reasonable regard to the comprehensive plan, current conditions, and the character of current structures and uses in the district, the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted, the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction, and the responsible development and growth. It was the recommendation at that time that the comprehensive plan can, but is not to be followed on any specific finding that would be made where it would be to the expense or detriment of the town or its
Yeah,
residents.
that's, so it sounds like what they did, and And I don't know, who was the defendant in this? Who was?
It was Town of St. John.
Town of St. John, okay. Yeah, they did what we refer to as a finding of fact. So they didn't just say no, they said no because. Because A, B, C, and D. And that's perfectly legitimate. Yeah.
So
So-
we have a good guide here. It's time we updated our comprehensive plan, but it is not the end-all, be-all.
Correct,
of making
yeah.
our town.
Yeah,
better,
yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I'm done.
that is
Are
correct.
you sure?
Yes, ma'am. I'm done.
Okay, good. Well, wonderful discussion.
So I just.
Very good, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
Say
you.
one thing, I want to thank everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Well, thank
But
you.
in my conversation with Corey, I want everyone here to know that this is not the comprehensive plan. This is what we are calling emerging recommendations.
Right.
We have met with the steering committee. This is now the plan commission, town council, and the BZA. Tomorrow we'll meet with the momentum, and that's made up of community members, as well as it'll be some developers here also. So then we'll come back. I don't want everyone to leave with saying, we just got finished looking at
No, you
the
didn't.
comprehensive plan, because no, you didn't.
No, you didn't.
Okay, thank you.
No,
still-
but this is all very important stuff. And it's a very important time for us to be, for having this meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You did a good job.